So before we get started with our presenters, I just wanted to talk a little bit about what post-bac or what post-baccalaureate program is, because there are a lot of different definitions. But post-bac really is work that's taken post-baccalaureate. So post your bachelor's degree, whether you're getting a BA or BS, you graduate from UCR and you go somewhere else to take classes. You're taking one class, that's really a post-bac class, right? Most of us know post-bac as pursuing additional coursework for the health professions, and that's probably why you're here today. So there are a couple of different ways to do that. If you've been in for advising, we've talked about it, but just so that we can get everybody on the same page, students typically pursue post-bac work in a couple of different areas, or a couple different formats. So the first I call a la carte, which is very informal. That's taking classes through like extension or open enrollment or open university. Different schools have different terms, but really what it means is that you end up going to a school and you take one or many classes and you're registering for them as you go. So you decide what you want to take, you register for the course, you complete that course, and you move forward. It's not part of a structured program per se. And then there are certificate programs. These are a little bit more formal. Typically, certificate programs require an application, oftentimes letters of recommendation, transcripts, of course, sometimes personal statements or essays. It's reviewed by a committee, and then you're offered maybe an interview and admission to that program. And then there are master's programs, or sometimes we call them SNPs. We have some students that are pursuing master's programs in an academic discipline like biology or chemistry or biochemistry, and they may be using that as a post-bac, but they may be using that work to help them gain employment. So it may not be necessarily, it could be for medical school or dental school, but they may be doing that discipline as a way to prepare for a job if they decide not to go into an academic program. So again, there's a lot of different ways. We want to make sure that you know about these. Some of our presenters, again, are going to talk about their programs. One of the things that I always encourage students to ask questions about is the finances. So we've talked with students that will say, I'm interested in taking additional coursework, but show me the money. How am I going to be able to pay for this? And that's a very valid question. So that's something that some of our presenters will talk about today, questions that you want to ask moving forward, so you know what you're expected to contribute. I also want to just cover how do you know a post-bac program is for you. I think this is really important because we do a lot of workshops in our office, and Amber and I, we do surveys in the past, and we've asked students, what information are you hoping to find? And most of you have probably attended our Intro to Health Professions workshop. How many of you have attended that? So hopefully most, if not all of you. And when we were doing surveys, we had a lot of students. Our workshop is for all students, but predominantly freshmen. We had a lot of freshmen ask us, well, why didn't you talk about post-bac programs? So we're not sure that they really even knew what a post-bac program was. So I think it's really important for us to provide that description and descriptors so you actually know what they are. So post-bac programs are typically designed for students that were maybe not a science major or didn't take science coursework at the undergraduate level. So they were an English major, a sociology major, a non-science major. And they had this epiphany in undergrad, I want to be a dentist, or I want to be a physician, or I want to be a pharmacist. And maybe they're able to get some of the classes in, maybe not. Maybe they're approaching graduation and they're not able to take any science classes. So for those students, they're probably going to be looking at career changer programs. So if you've done a little research on post-bacs, you've heard the term career changer. And then we have students that were science majors and maybe took coursework but didn't take all the courses that they wanted to take. Maybe they didn't get as many upper divs as they would have liked to, or maybe they had a rough start and their GPA might not be where it is, or they weren't able to prepare for the MCAT or the DAT, or there are other factors that might exist and they want to strengthen the record before they apply. Those students are typically applying to an academic record enhancer program. Okay, and the academic record enhancer program, it could be a certificate, it could be a master's program. There's a variety of different formats, so you have to do a little bit of research. As you're exploring post-bacs, we do want you to come and talk to Amber and myself. This is the first start. So many of you during an appointment said, I want to talk about post-bacs, and we may have talked a little bit about that, but we asked you to come to tonight's workshop to help give you more, really a fuller picture of what this looks like. But we do want to talk with you to make sure that you're doing it for the right reasons, that you've done your research so that you know the decision you make is right for you, and you're not picking the phone up and calling us in September or October and you're in Washington, D.C. and you're like, I made a mistake. What do I do? Because it's hard for us to help you at that point. Okay. So one of the really fantastic resources that are out there is the AAMC. It stands for the Association of American Medical Colleges, and they have a really nice website or tool that you're able to go on to. The web address is in red that you're able to log on to free of charge, and it's a directory of post-bac programs that have contacted the AAMC to say, put my program on there. This is not a list of every program in the U.S. Not all programs are listed, but this is probably the best list that you're going to find. I think up here it says there are 237 programs, so I'd say this is probably the best search tool that's out there. But you need to do a little research because you'll find there are some schools listed twice because they may have a certificate. They may also have a master's program. So again, this is a really great resource for you to look at as you're thinking about post-bac programs. So without taking additional time, I want to go ahead and introduce our presenters. We have 5 individuals today that are going to be talking about 4 different types of post-bac programs. I'm going to go ahead and introduce Mary Rose from the University of California Postbac Consortium. And Mary Rose is going to talk a little bit about various programs that are part of that application. So I'm going to go ahead and...
I started in my position in March, so I'm really excited to be here at UCR to talk about our program and hopefully get you guys interested in attending. Just to give some background on the consortium, we've been established for 19 years, and it's been a collaboration of academic enhancer post-bac programs. So if you are interested in a career change or post-bac, this may not be the right path for you, just to give you a warning. Our mission is to increase the number of physicians who practice in physician shortage areas of California by assisting students from socioeconomically disadvantaged backgrounds in gaining admissions to medical school. So what does that mean? Our post-bac program offers professional development workshops, upper division science courses, MCAT preparation, mentorship, and assistance with the medical school application process. There's also a component of our program that focuses on educating students on inequities and disparities in underserved communities throughout California. Now, our consortium consists of 5 UC School of Medicines, one of which includes UCR, but there's also UC Davis, UC Irvine, UCLA, and to be specific, it's actually David Geffen School of Medicine, and UCSF. All right, so there is one free application to apply to our program. That means one application to apply to all 5 campuses. Our application will be available as of January 8th online. And typically every year it's available the first week of January. And our first time applicant deadline is March 14th. And our reapplicant deadline is May 2nd. So you may be wondering, what is a reapplicant and what is a first time applicant? A first time applicant is a student who has not applied to medical school. And a reapplicant is a student who has applied to medical school but was unsuccessful in gaining admissions. And so UCLA is our only reapplicant program. So they are the exception to the consortium. They do not accept first-time applicants. By these. All right, so eligibility criteria. All of our programs requires a interview in order to attend. That interview may consist of a Skype interview, a panel interview, a group interview, or a one-on-one interview with our program administrators. So again, it will vary depending on the campus that you're invited to interview on. Let's see. As mentioned earlier, we're looking for students who can commit to a year in our program. So our students must at least maintain a 3.5 GPA while they're in the program. I know you're probably wondering, like, wow, that's high GPA. But it's possible because our students aren't working while they're in the program. We do not allow you to have any major commitments that includes shadowing, research, or working part-time. You can only focus on, getting those A's in those upper division science courses. Let's see. In terms of the eligibility criteria, we're looking for students who exhibit a passion for serving underserved communities. We're also looking for students who may be coming from a socioeconomically or educationally disadvantaged background. Let's see. We ask that in your application you express why you are disadvantaged, because we'd like to hear your story and your perspective. So it's very important that you're transparent in your application so we understand where you're coming from. We're looking for you to also submit your transcripts so that we know that you've attended college in the U.S. And we're also looking for you to have completed your pre-medical requirements. Now, we understand that not all students may have completed all of their pre-med requirements by the time they graduate, so it can be reviewed on a case-by-case basis, but they have emphasized that you've completed at least the minimum pre-med requirements, and that can be found on the AANC website as well. So there is a minimum GPA in order to apply to our program. So we're looking for students to have at least a 2.7 science GPA. So that's your BCPM, your biochemistry, physics, and math GPA. And in the past, we've had students that have had a lower GPA. And again, those would be reviewed on a case-by-case basis. However, I would highly suggest if you do have a lower GPA, that you consider taking courses in order to boost that GPA to apply to our program. Let's see. Now, oops, I'm just gonna go back, sorry about that. Also, our program is open to California residents, and we understand, I just want to emphasize that we're not saying that you necessarily have to be a legal resident, so we are open to accepting applications from DACA students as well. So that's something to keep in mind. Let's see. Now the application, the fun stuff. Okay, so there's one free online application. If you look on the brochure, on the back of your brochure, you'll find the link to our application. That needs to be submitted no later than the application deadline. We will not accept applications after the deadline. If you call the consortium, unfortunately, we cannot accept those applications. We're looking for you to submit at least 3 letters of recommendations. Your first letter of recommendation should come from a science professor. We want to know who you are in the classroom. We want to know, well, we're really looking for someone that can speak to your abilities within the classroom. We're also looking for a letter from a community service advisor, someone you've worked with within the community. And your last letter can either be from a professor or an employer. A lot of programs actually prefer professors, so I would just keep that in mind. If you can develop a relationship with a professor on campus, you should do so to get these letters of recommendations. Let's see, for your official transcripts, they should be sent into the consortium. And we understand that some students may have studied abroad, so you may have to start requesting these transcripts earlier so that they get to us by the deadline. And if you have taken courses at a community college, you should also be sending us those transcripts as well. And they need to be official. And if you have applied to medical school, you can submit your AMCAS report, and that would be the medical school application. And we would also take that into consideration when reviewing your application. And for those of you who have completed your MCAT, you can send those scores in. But I understand that some students may not have, so I would suggest you not take it if you're not ready to. Don't take it just because you want to apply to our program. So take it when you're ready. Now, I just wanted to provide you with our essay questions. I know they're not listed online, but if you are interested in applying, this would be a great time to write down our questions. Our first essay question for the program is explain why you want to go to medical school. And you'll have about 2,500 characters to do so, which is approximately a page. Our second essay question is to explain why you'd like to participate in the post-bac program. This is a lengthy one. Discuss your expectations of the program and what you will contribute to it. Explain any weaknesses in your academic records, so we understand that, you know, you may have had some struggles your freshman year, and if you'd like to acknowledge that, you can do so in your essay. We also want you to discuss why you're interested in working with underserved communities. I'll give you guys a few seconds to write that down. I understand it's a little long. Or you can take a picture of it, like my friend here.
We'll have this recorded as well. So
Oh, yeah.
Dang.
Okay. Now, the last essay question, we again would like you to describe any experiences you've had working with underserved communities. So the second question asks why you want to work with underserved. This is describe that experience that you've had working with underserved communities. All right, so tips for regarding our consortium. We are accepting applications on a rolling admissions. Well, we have a rolling admissions process, so your application will start being reviewed as of March 14th. And we have a reapplicant deadline in May, so it may take us some time to process it. So you guys should try to submit your applications earlier than later. We also suggest that you have someone proofread your statements just because they will be looking at your writing abilities. Also, you want to make sure that you have solid letter writers, so get to know your recommender. And lastly, you want to be professional. So if you do contact the consortium or other School of Medicines, you should be mindful of how you address them. Word gets out and folks talk, so you want to make sure that you're leaving a great first impression on whoever you speak to in admissions.
So my name is Teresa Cofield. I'm director of the UCR School of Medicine PreMedical Post-baccalaureate program. I also manage some of the other pipeline programs, so I think I know some of you who are here this evening. So I think now that we've heard from Mary Rose about some of the application elements, the due dates, deadlines, and some best practices that you might want to pursue if you're thinking about applying to the UC Consortium, I'll just tell you a little bit about the specific program at UC Riverside. So for UCR, if you are serious about applying to our program, you need to understand the mission of the UCR School of Medicine first. We do receive a lot of applications, typically over 500 in a year, and we typically are interested in admitting somewhere between 8 and 12 students depending on a particular application cycle and what the dean's office decides would be the best fit. So you really want to understand our mission statement, which is to improve the health of the people of California and especially to serve inland Southern California by training a diverse workforce of physicians and by developing innovative research and healthcare delivery programs that will improve the health of medically underserved in the region and become models to be emulated throughout the state and nation. Okay, so something that you should be aware of that I find sometimes is challenging during a recruitment cycle is that some people actually don't have an interest necessarily in California, let alone inland Southern California. So keep that in mind. We do receive a lot of applications in a given year. Also, the program for the post-bac is specifically interested in training individuals who want to apply specifically to an MD program as well. Okay. So our program, when we say that this is a one-year program, we're asking for a 12-month commitment out of our applicants. Okay, so this is a 12-month commitment roughly. That's our typical calendar year of activities for our students. Okay, we're looking to provide a program that will benefit students who want rigorous science coursework as well as MCAT preparation. We provide mentoring from faculty and staff. Our students are invited to School of Medicine seminars, particularly on health disparities. And then I'm the primary staff member that works the program, and when it's time to apply to medical school, we walk you through that process. So in terms of who we really look for when we review applications, we're looking for people who want to apply to medical school immediately after completing our one-year program, students who are going to be dedicated to full-time participation in the program, students who are first-time applicants to medical school or would be a reapplicant to medical school after they complete our program. Okay. Again, committed to practicing medicine in underserved communities, especially inland Southern California. For those of you who might be local to this region, we might call that Inland Empire, okay, rather than inland Southern California. We're definitely looking for individuals who come from a disadvantaged background. Some people ask me for clarification on that definition. This would include individuals who from an early age, this would be childhood, resided in a low-income community, or maybe experienced some kind of enduring family or societal hardships that significantly compromise their educational opportunities. Okay. And again, Mary Rose had already mentioned that during this application process, we ask people to write about that, okay, because we would like to know your unique experience and talk about your future plans. Okay. In terms of our eligibility requirements, I'll just review a few. There are variations between each UC post-bac in terms of specific eligibility requirements. I always recommend that you review and keep careful track to make sure that you're eligible for any one participating program in the UC Consortium. So for Riverside, we do allow people to apply to the program who are planning to graduate in June. And would like to start the program right after graduation. Not all consortium participants allow for June graduation. Okay, we do not allow for July or August graduations. Okay, so that's important to know because the campus may have a policy that you can, quote, walk at a commencement ceremony in June, but if you have not cleared graduation in the registrar's office, you do not qualify. Okay, so that's something important to know. It's a question that I get frequently. Okay. In terms of prerequisite requirements, I'd like to clarify if you're missing something, the case-by-case basis, something I think that this audience would benefit from. Our undergraduate campus that supports this post-bac program, we did not make an arrangement with them to provide a year of organic chemistry, a year of general chemistry, and I think that some of you are aware that those classes are already impacted anyway right now. Okay, so the types of coursework that we typically help people with on a case-by-case basis would be maybe they didn't take biochemistry already. An individual maybe has a need to take psychology because they know that that's a topic covered on the MCAT. So those are typically classes that we would be looking at. Okay, the minimum undergraduate science GPA 2.7. Okay, but it's better if you have something higher because most people who contact me are worried about what their application will look like when they apply to medical school. Okay, so for those of you who are have quite a bit more time left in college, if you can do something to raise your GPA now, I would strongly recommend that. Okay. We do not require the MCAT. I'd like to emphasize that one more time. I do regularly get that question, do I need to take the MCAT to be eligible for this program? No, you don't. If you have an MCAT, you must release that information to us, okay? And then we do have some minimum MCAT requirements. For our program, an MCAT of 492 is pretty much the minimum, okay? And we're looking for a past history or demonstrated commitment of working in underserved communities, okay? And we do work with students who are AB 540 or DACA eligible in terms of California residency. Okay, we're looking for people who actually have been living in California is really what my department would call a California resident. The registrar's office has other ways of determining what tuition is, so we let them do their job. But in our department, we're just looking for people who live in California. Okay, so in terms of curriculum, this is a popular question. Our program does a 12-unit per quarter enrollment. That's 3 classes. Okay, we do not do 4 or 5 classes at all because we are very serious about you need to get a 3.5. This is an academic record enhancer program, and we have people who apply to the program that have a very inconsistent academic history where they have not historically been on something like a dean's list. So we do not have students taking 4 or 5 classes. So you take 9 classes for the year. 7 of them are required to be in the sciences at the upper division junior senior level. Okay, there are 2 additional non-science classes that need to be taken during the year, and one of our additional policy is that this program that we run is not for people to come and retake a course. So I meet a lot of applicants that might be worried about a past physics course or a particular chemistry or organic or physics class or something. We do not repeat curriculum through this program. We focus on a fresh start, and the fresh start is going to be a 3.5 or better GPA. Okay. In terms of the curriculum that's taken, the bulk of the curriculum is taken through quote CNAS, the College of Natural and Agricultural Sciences. The advising, especially the academic advising, is handled primarily through the Postbac program, and we select specific coursework, so it's custom tailored for each of our individual students. There is the Senior Associate Dean over the program prefers to call it a learning contract. I prefer to call it a learning agreement because I usually have the student write most of it to set these expectations for the GPA contract. Okay. In terms of cost, that's often an important question that people have. We do treat you as if you're a graduate student, so you should be getting high grades, but we will charge you tuition as if you were getting your first bachelor's degree. So you can access the standard website for our bachelor's degree students and see what the current fee schedule is. So for fall quarter, if you needed to have university health insurance, all the other fees and tuition added up to $5,225. Okay, you still needed to buy books and maybe pay for parking, and you still have responsibilities for housing, but that's the minimum cost to get things going. Okay. MCAT preparation for our program, we use Kaplan, and we provide 2 separate Kaplan courses. We take the MCAT very seriously, and historically we have worked with a lot of students across our pipeline programs, but more specifically in the pre-medical post-baccalaureate program that need additional support in the critical reasoning and analysis skills section. So we run a separate course, and then we have an additional full-length MCAT program that focuses on a lot of the sciences as well as its CARS and psychological behavioral sciences section. We pay for both of those courses and provide textbooks for them. Okay, those courses are taught exclusively for students in the Postbac program, and those are taught in the summertime. In terms of the advising for the medical school application process, just like to reiterate that we do walk you through each step. That would be selecting the medical schools, preparing the primary and secondary application, mock interviewing. Students who have done well in the program are able to receive a letter of recommendation from Dr. Schiller and myself. We write essentially a letter of evaluation where we go through in detail about how much progress you've made through time, as well as your investment in the Postbac program and our assessment of your potential for the future and why we think a medical school really should accept you. Okay, but you do have to work very hard in the program. First step is making sure you meet the GPA contract. Because the program does require a full year commitment and then you need another year to apply to medical school, I do like to emphasize that there are no costs for that second year of support. Because after you finish your first year and you have your courses and your MCAT done and you do come to the campus to meet with me, we do not charge advising fees for that. Okay, so there are no costs for that. You know, it might cost you a little transportation to get here if you're not local, and I do take telephone appointments to make sure that we minimize your cost for that, okay? But we don't charge any university fees, okay? Occasionally I have people who are worried that as soon as their last summer class is over that they might have to keep paying fees to see you, but we don't do that. In terms of some services and activities, again, we do invite people to selected events in the School of Medicine and to make sure that you have a community of support. Okay. Financial aid, Charlie already mentioned that earlier at the beginning of his presentation, that this is important to ask about. Our program is not a certificate and it's not a master's program. So it has been reviewed when we set it up, and we asked that it be reviewed again about 1.5 years ago. Our program is not eligible for federal financial aid. Okay. So our program is eligible for private loans. There's information on our UCR financial aid website about what private loans are. Some students call them alternative loans. We work with School of Medicine financial aid. Students in our post-bac program work with School of Medicine financial aid advisors. They're more frequently available, and they do all the processing of all that paperwork. If you do want to work with a private loan, they make sure that you're supported, you know what's going on, and things like that. Now, what I will tell you is that the School of Medicine is invested in the post-bac program, and since we developed it 10 years ago, and we do provide scholarships. Scholarships are internal and unique to the School of Medicine. We have been pretty dedicated through time to writing grants as well as recruiting through the development office, people who are private donors who believe in this program and like to support students. Okay. So I don't want you thinking that there are no opportunities. Okay. In terms of how people receive a scholarship, part of it is merit, part of it is actual financial need, part of it is what type of community service you've been doing. So it matters what kind of scholarship application you write for our program. Okay. So I do tell all applicants to our program that you do need to complete a FAFSA, because FAFSA is how we determine if you need financial aid, okay, for those scholarship reviews. So just in summary, I just want to kind of, summarize a little bit about the UCR program. So we are an academic enhancer program. Okay, we focus on science curriculum, MCAT preparation. I actually teach a problem-solving seminar, and then Kaplan provides the critical reasoning course that's custom, and then there are also some study skills workshops throughout the year. In terms of some specific courses that people tend to ask me about when I give this presentation each year, I provided a short list. It's not an exhaustive list, but we often have our students take the biochemistry series, Biochem 110A, B, and C. Some students have not taken molecular biology 107A or 107B, so those classes are encouraged. Maybe an additional genetics course like biology 108. Some of our students do like ecology, so biology 116. Hormones and behavior 178. A few CBNS courses, as well as a few microbiology courses. So those are some examples of classes that people take. Our program provides a lot of career preparation for medically underserved communities and seminars. And then an important component of our program to just remember is that not only do we provide the individual support, but we are a cohort model to really make sure that the students are collaborating with each other and supporting each other throughout the year, and that they're connected to some of the resources throughout our School of Medicine. And I'll take the questions at the end. And all the photos are actual students that have been through the program in the past. Thank you.
Great, thanks. Hi, everybody. Like Charlie said, I'm the Director of Admissions at KGI. I'm going to tell you a little bit about our school. I also brought a shining example of both UCR and KGI here with Ronald. So I'm going to let him share a little bit more about his experience at KGI and what he's up to after. So just real quickly, a note about KGI. We are very young, we're new, we're innovative. We focus on training the next leaders of the bioscience and healthcare industry. And that's really, really important to us. We're small and nimble, and we're thinking about the future of medicine, and we want to train the leaders to take us there. So we are at Claremont College. We are not too far from here, about 30-35 minutes down the road. There are 5 undergrad schools there: Pomona, Claremont McKenna, Scripps, Harvey Mudd, Pitzer, and then 2 graduate schools. So I mentioned KGI is the baby of the consortium. We are about 15 to 20 years old. We deal with the different side of science. We deal with, so you guys are going to become physicians, and you have to work with your patients to diagnose disease, provide therapies for them. There's tools you might use. That industry is what KGI focuses in, and that's the classes that you would take at KGI. So you can see this pipeline here that I'm showing you, to get to the point where you can make your patients feel better by providing them therapies or diagnosing what might be wrong with them. you've got to have the products that go through the discovery phase, and that's the research side, and some of you might be involved with research here at UCR. But then there's a whole business and industry. You got to manufacture it, work with the FDA, get things through the licensing side to get to the point where you as physicians can take care of your patients. And so KGI has programs all along this pipeline, and the classes that Ronald had to take, even though he's going to be a doctor in the future, he still had to take classes that had to do with the industry side. And we'll talk a little bit about that. We have a ton of programs now. When I started 10 years ago, we only had one, which is called the Masters of Business and Science. So again, we started with this desire to show, to have a scientist that understands how to get something out the door. So science and business, and that was the MBS program. Now the two we're going to focus on today are the post-bac PA certificate and the post-bac medical certificate. And then again, there's a host of master's programs you can finish your second year if you choose to stay at KGI. I'll touch on those a little bit, but I really want to spend most of my time, my limited time here, talking about our pre-medical certificate program. So again, I'm going to do this slide really fast, and then I'm going to ask Ronald to share a little bit about his experience. So at KGI, again, like you've been hearing today, we are an academic enhancing program. We're going to assume that most of you have done your pre-med prereqs. Although we're part of a consortium that does have undergraduate colleges, KGI is a grad school, so the classes you take are going to be graduate level science that will assume that you've already had basic preparation. It will enhance your overall GPA, and it can enhance your science GPA a little bit. We only get you for 2 semesters, so we're not going to be able to, jump you from a 2.7 to a 3.5 in 2 semesters, but it will enhance your overall GPA and your science GPA. And it is a separate, graduate education, graduate layer when med schools take a look at it. So classes are different. We focus on rare diseases, a molecular basis of disease, med device and diagnostics, which is a class everybody talks about, so Ronald will probably talk about that one, pharmacology classes. We have some co-curricular. Again, I'll ask Ronald to talk about some of the co-curricular that we've done. Similar to a lot of the programs you're hearing about tonight, we do MCAT prep. We have someone teach that. We have used Kaplan in the past. Really, our program director, Dr. Kim, is kind of like sourcing sort of who he feels is teaching the test well, and that'll be taught on KGI's campus. You can research at KGI. You can do some clinical time through our program. We are going to work on your professionalism basically from day one. Lots of interview prep. We've done some tours in med schools. My favorite part about what we do is we introduce you to other opportunities for how to use your science to help people. So that's how we'll help you explore different ways to use your science in case you change your mind about med school, or med school is that door gets closed for you. There is another opportunity for you in the industry. You can finish a master's degree with your second year. So I'm going to stop for a second and have Ronald introduce himself and maybe talk about, your time at UCS slides in. So new for this year, we also have a certificate that's focused on what might be needed if you're PA. If you're thinking about being a physician's assistant. They're very similar. Classes are similar, but for the PA program, there's a lot more clinical hours needed. So there'll be a lot of relationships that we're building with sites that you need to get those clinical hours up to where the PA school is going to need from you. We have some of these undergraduate classes you see at the top that are taught at KGI over the summer. We offered some of those classes for this program and for our School of Pharmacy because they have some pretty intense prereqs. And so that happens at the summer at KGI. Very similar, we're going to mock interview. We don't want your first interview at a med school to be the first time that you've interviewed. So we do. Did you do the mock interviews?
Yeah, we did them like last week, so that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, so we're gonna try our best to mimic that multi-mini interview, and then we also will record you being interviewed and watch it back with you so that we don't want you to be walking into Western or UCR and be really scared because it's your first time. We want to try to ease that by training you a little bit before you get there. And then, of course, we'll connect you with the PA schools in this area. Same options the second year to finish one of our master's programs, which I'll talk later. So another really unique thing with KGI is we're really like crazy connected with the companies in industry. And that's, again, for my master's students that their job is going to end up at one of these companies. And I don't know, did you do a team master's project?
I did not receive it.
Okay, so no help from you. But basically, these are really intense 2-semester client-sponsored. So Pfizer, Becton Dickinson, BioMarin are paying KGI $60,000 for their students to solve a problem over 2 semesters. They're very professional. At the end of the year, the students will go to the company headquarters and present to their their executive team, and that's the end of one of our master's degrees. We've had several pre-med students participate. Every year we invite med schools to KGI to watch our final presentations, and they like leave with their jaws, you know, like so for example, Pfizer, you might know Pfizer because they're a big pharma company, and they have drugs in their pipeline for solving many you know, diseases, but they haven't been considering the ethnicities of the the ethnicities of the patients that are most suffering from these diseases when they go through clinical trials. They're just trying to get as many people in their clinical trials as they can to prove that their drug is effective. But if you guys, you know, you guys might know that you take a drug and I take a drug, and because our genetics are different, it might work for you and it might not work for me. So when you're doing a clinical trial, you should consider the population that you have in your trial. So this was a big project that our students did with Pfizer, helping to diversify their clinical trials. Awesome for our pre-med students, great for our master's students. That's just one example, and it's an opportunity you can take advantage of at KGI. We also have other cool things. You mentioned a little bit the policy class. We do a lot with this rare disease space, or orphan drugs. And orphan drug designation is basically just incenting a company to prepare a therapy for a rare disease where there is no therapy. And you might think, you know, a company's going to put millions of billions of dollars into creating a therapy, and then they're going to cure a disease, and they're not going to get recoup their investment. So why would they do something like that? So this is the FDA coming through saying, we will give you a longer patent time, and we will fast track you. And so there's an incentive for you to go down this path. And so one of our pre-med students, Taylor, a lot of our pre-med students had the opportunity. Did you do rare disease or orphan drugs? The policy class. So she wrote with a team, everything's in team, an orphan drug designation for Rett syndrome. And her team, that was approved by the FDA, and that was an awesome experience for her. So she writes below, this is an older slide that I had to update. She says, I'm applying to med school, and I want to be a physician, and this was a great experience. Well, actually, she didn't apply to med school. She now works at City of Hope as a regulatory affairs specialist. So this is kind of another one of my little asterisks for, we're not trying to change the mind of our pre-med students, but sometimes you see what else might be out there outside of medicine. And so for her, she didn't even apply. She didn't even apply to med school, and she's happy at the City of Hope right now. We do have a lot of our alum. We have the 83%, recently, our most statistic is 83% matriculating to a med program for those that apply. Here's just a couple highlights, like Franco is at the Keck School. Carlos is in Michigan State MD programs, and we have Dios. Jessica was a Western, just graduated from Western, and she's now a resident with Kaiser. And then we have Michael Davis. So with DO and MD, California, non-California, our own shining example right here has been admitted to the Keck School at USC, which we're not affiliated. I know it's confusing. Yay, we're not affiliated, but we do have successful alum that will be matriculating this fall and are about to graduate. And we have our own UCR success stories over here. So we currently have 5. Well, Laura just graduated first class of UCR Med School. Do you know Laura? We loved her too. And then these are our 4 current UCR Med students. So I mentioned, I'm going to quickly buzz through these master's programs, and you have the chance, like Ronald chose, maybe you want to talk about your decision not to stay for a master's program.
Yeah, so the really cool thing about this program, you can decide, to stay a second year, get your master's. I decided not to, it worked out, that's fine. But if you want to do more research, you want to learn more about the industry, it's a great opportunity to do so. And so one thing that we mentioned, there's like a lot of group work. There's a ridiculous amount of group work, probably more than I've ever done in Riverside my whole time here. But it's great because it's going to prepare you for being a physician, for any professional area you wish to go to. But also you can take into account like what is the best fit for you.
Yeah, so I have to say about 40% of our pre-med stay the second year because you apply to med school after the certificate and you have another year until you're going to matriculate to med school. So, hey, why not? Well, there's lots of reasons why not to, and you'll get personally advised on whether it's a good choice for you or not. And Ronald's still at KGI getting paid as a TA, but not paying us. No problem. So this is a Master's of Science. You could do a thesis. You could do the Team Master's Project, which is that corporate project I talked about. These are our graduates last year. Most of these are pre-med students. Their end goal is med school, but you could go into a pharma career, you could do academic research, med school, or move into a PhD. I'm going to go fast now because these are master's programs. I know you guys are here for post-bac. This is the business and science. This is, again, you can finish this your second year. It's much more credits. You have to work at a company over the summer, a paid internship. It's tough to get through the 2 years, but it's possible, especially if you want that experience of interning at a company and you want to work on that consulting project. This would be a good one to try to finish the second year. Again, really solid career paths after. Here's just an example of what you can do. Alex is, again, at City of Hope, Regulatory Affairs. Melissa is a consultant. That's a big outcome of a master's program. Selena's in operations at Gilead. And then Combi's is at Amgen. Amgen's our #1 employer. He's a project manager there. So those are really businessy kind of MBA type jobs, but really best done by a scientist who understands what's happening at those companies. Super technical engineering degree, but also you may be interested because this is how do you make a biologic drug. So the medicine of the future are going to be these gene-based therapies that have to be made using a technical process in a live animal cell. So this is a really cool, there's tons of jobs in this space. This is how do you make a biologic drug. And then you can see the jobs are technical. You know, there's Kite Pharma, commercial manufacturing. We have T-cell manufacturer. Flocka's in our PhD program. She's actually getting, her PhD is sponsored by the company. She half the time at the company, half the time at KGI. Anyway, these are very technical jobs, but awesome. Now you're making that rare drug that someone needs that saves their life. That's pretty cool. Okay, so KGI, life at KGI. What was it like?
So at first, it's quite a transition from, I guess, being a UCR alum because we are in a semester system, but we also have modules. So it's kind of like semester, quarter, hybrid kind of thing going on. And they're graduate level classes, so that's something to get used to. But the awesome thing is that within the post-bac program, you get wonderful support. It's about 60 of us. We got really close. We all work on like a ton of projects together. We're best friends at the end, for sure. So we do a lot of med school trips. We do a lot of volunteer work in the community in Claremont. And it's really cool that every professor is super accessible. I know that might sound like the craziest thing being at a UC. I know when I got to KGI, I was like, well, there's no lines to see my professor. Like, this is kind of weird. So everyone's super accessible. If you want to do research, if you want to connect with anyone at the school, it's really easy to connect. And there's a really big focus on professionalism, so we have all these wonderful presentations on campus about cutting edge technology from all these companies, and it's really enlightening to get that perspective as well.
Cool. We're building housing, so that's kind of cool. We've never had it before, but you could live right on campus, or if you guys are local to this area, you can just commute. So we'd love for you to come check us out. Our next open house is December 1st, or just take my card in the back, and you know, I'm there, Ronald's there for the next year. Come see us anytime, and we're looking forward to questions at the end.
All right, thank you, Shannon and Ronald. So last but least, we have Marcos Villa, who's going to talk a little bit about the master's program at Western University.
All right, thanks, Charlie. All right, good evening, everyone. You all still awake? Maybe? You all have beverages. Maybe you should take a sip to snap out of it. So my name is Marcos Villa. I'm here to talk to you about Western U's special master's programs. As Charlie introduced tonight's presentation, he talked about 3 different types of post-bac options when you're doing your research for what to do in preparation for med school. And special master's programs are out there for you to select. We offer 2 at Western U, and I am the Director of Student Affairs for both of those programs. They are housed in the Graduate College of Biomedical Sciences, which is one of 9 colleges at Western U. If you're familiar with us, we do have a medical program, dental program, physical therapy, podiatry, optometry. Pretty much we have everything you can think of when it comes to health sciences education. We are a DO school, so our medical program is an osteopathic medical program. We're located in Pomona. Hopefully some of you are familiar with us or you've been out to visit us already. If not, we have our open house on Saturday, so in a couple days from now, which you're welcome to register for online. So just real quick to give you a recap of what a special master's program is, it is designed for pre-health students. And we at Western U do use the term pre-health or pre-professional because our programs are designed for anyone who's pre-health or pre-professional. You could be pre-med, that could be pre-DO or pre-MD. We do accept both. We have pre-dental students, pre-optometry, pre-pharmacy, pre-PA, you name it, they're in our program. About 2/3 of our program every year, of our cohort every year, is pre-med. So pre-DO or pre-MD students. So that does dominate, but we do have a mixture for the other third of our class. So in 2016, last year, Charlie was referring to some of those numbers on the AAMC website. In 2016, there were 223 post-bac programs listed with diversity goals, and 31 of those programs were considered special master's programs. So within that 200 plus, you're going to find those certificate programs, those academic enhancers and whatnot, and included in there would be special master's programs. What's interesting about a special master's program is it is, in fact, more broad in its educational goal, and a traditional master's program, which my colleagues at KGI were just talking about, they tend to be more specialized. So a special master's is broad, and a traditional master's is specialized. So try to remember that. But really what we're trying to do is get you prepared for professional school. We give you a taste of that first year of medical school, dental school, and whatnot. With more didactic units, you're in a classroom. There is research, but it doesn't dominate our program. You're taking courses like anatomy, biochemistry, physiology, molecular and cellular biology, all at the graduate level. So with that in mind, because you're taking coursework in a classroom, you're being lectured, you're being evaluated with exams, we do not consider our programs academic enhancers, GPA enhancers, or anything like that. We are an application enhancer. And what that means is we're going to give you a comprehensive experience. You will, again, have those didactic courses, that graduate level science coursework. You will shadow physicians or dentists and whatever your profession is. You will have community service requirements. There is a research capstone project included. So all of that makes us a special master's program. And in fact, it's an application enhancer. So it's really proving yourself to professional schools. And the reason we say application enhancer, which it might be on a future slide, I apologize for that. The average GPA of our graduates is about a 3.4. So if you're looking to boost your GPA, this isn't exactly the program for you. This, again, is for someone who's looking for that foundational knowledge. You're looking for that opportunity to prove yourself, maybe fill in some holes in your application. And also students do utilize our curriculum to prepare them for retaking things like the MCAT and the DAT. We do not recommend or encourage students to study for or retake or take those exams. I should say retake, because you do have to have an exam coming in. We don't recommend you do that during the program, but that is a case-by-case thing that we manage. Some students come in with a very low MCAT score, for example, and let's say they're performing at the top of their cohort. That might be someone that will suggest, well, you're doing pretty well with us, so studying for the MCAT might not be a bad idea for you since you need to do that anyway. So a couple of things that are really, really important to us. All of my colleagues have mentioned their program and or institution missions, visions, things like that. And we are no different. We have a mission as well, which you can easily read yourselves. But in short, what we're trying to do is prepare you for professional school. And again, that's regardless of your pathway. We are trying to provide you with the knowledge, critical evaluation skills, and research awareness that will allow you to become well-informed, evidence-based professionals. And so nowhere in there do you see that we're trying to prepare you for a Western U specific program, although those tend to be the most popular with our students. They get very comfortable with our faculty. They've made friends at that point. So a majority of our students do transition into other Western U programs. But nowhere, again, in here does it say we're preparing you for Western U. We are preparing you for professional programs regardless of where that might be. And we do see students applying and being accepted all over the country. The vision, again, something you can read, but in short, what we're trying to do is diversify healthcare. That's really what we're trying to do here, and you can see that underserved areas is a particular topic of interest for us. And the mission and the vision of our MS program, those do drive our admissions process. So your personal statement in the MS application should definitely connect with, relate to, you should identify with both the mission and the vision. So you're looking for that preparation, something maybe went wrong while you were here at UCR. Maybe you didn't do so well on your standardized exam or something like that. There is a hole in your profile. There's something that needs a little bit of repair. And then what we're trying to do here is diversify healthcare with those students. And what I mean by that is basically you define the word diversity for us. It could be a community that you identify with. It could be a community that you have you recognize needs a little extra attention in healthcare, but really healthcare disparities. Think about that. You know, maybe there's a very specific issue that applies to gender or ethnicity or age or whatnot, and you have discovered that that population needs some extra attention, whether you relate to them or not. That's the kind of stuff we want to hear about in your application. So again, mission and vision-driven admissions process. This expands a little bit more on what I was talking about. We're specifically trying to address the issues of our area. We're located in Pomona, 70% Hispanic, 7% Black or African American. In addition to that, 22% of our population right surrounding our campus lives below or at the poverty level. So our students are getting out in that community and giving back. That's the type of student we're looking for in our application process, because those are the expectations of you in our program. So these are just some ideas of what we would consider a diverse student, but that first bullet point is really where I would expand on that. Underrepresented in medicine, again, that could be anything that you've identified as a healthcare disparity. Just make sure you elaborate on that in your application. It does not necessarily mean that you grew up with low socioeconomic status, or you are considered an ethnic minority, or whatever you might have thought the word diversity meant. You truly do define that word for us. Okay. Again, admissions process is totally driven by our mission and vision. We're looking for BA and BS students with lower metrics. Our average GPA, undergraduate overall GPA of students coming in is usually a 2.9 to 3.1. So again, maybe you struggled, maybe you were working, maybe you got sick. I mean, who knows what it could be, but you might have a lower GPA, and that tends to be our average. Of course, there is a range. The minimum GPA to apply is a 2.5, and we see GPAs like 3.8, 3.9 coming in as well. But maybe those folks with 3.8 got a 490 on their MCAT or something like that. So it is a holistic and comprehensive review process. We truly do look at every single complete application. So as long as you've got all your transcripts to us, your letters of rec, you know, all that stuff that does qualify an application as complete, the Office of Admissions will send it over to our admissions committee, and we will take a look. In fact, it's a very extensive process. We spend a lot of time with your applications really looking for those areas that you've identified that need that extra help. Let's see. So our curriculum, again, I talked about anatomy, biochem, physio, micro. Those are some of the courses you will take. Again, this is all in preparation for medical, dental, optometry school, and whatnot. We will provide you with things like critical learning and communication skills courses. What we do in that course is we administer cumulative exams. So you're taking all those courses that are in the top bullet point, and in your learning skills course, we're developing cumulative exams to teach you more study strategies and things like that. It isn't considered a science course. It is all about learning skills. You also do have to do a research project. At the end of the year, you will have a presentation, a poster. It's a capstone project, so that does help qualify our program as a master's program. We do offer things like medical and clinical ethics. We have a course called Clinical Environments, which is primarily guest speakers. They come in and talk to our students about things like assertive communication, how to deal with the death of a patient. Let's see. there's quite a variety of things actually. We have other healthcare professionals. So let's say, for example, this cohort, we do not have a pre-podiatry student in the cohort, but we emphasize interprofessionalism at Western U. So I scheduled a podiatrist to come in and talk to all of our students and relate that profession to each of theirs. You know, how will they work together in the future, which is quite a bit more than you would think. There are 30 hours of community service required as an MSMS student, and all of this takes place in 11 months on top of the 46.5 units that you have to complete. 26.5 of those units are science coursework. Student involvement, our students do participate in the Student Government Association. We have over 130 clubs and organizations at Western U, so you're bound to find some type of club or organization that appeals to your needs. If not, you could always be the founding president of another organization on our campus, as if we need more. But you can imagine there are things like political organizations, religious, professional, recreational, whatever, and any combination of those things. We even have a dental sports club or something like that. I don't get it, but they're very specific at times, or sometimes very general, and you can join as many as you want. The topic of financial aid did come up throughout this presentation tonight, and we do offer scholarships. We are now shifting our scholarships to be recruitment scholarships, so if you're admitted to the program, you may receive a scholarship offer as part of that offer of admission. And then we also have a Dean Scholarship that is need-based, and we're developing an academic-based or merit-based scholarship, and those you apply for once you're in the program. So definitely some opportunities. We just gave out, I think, 14 $8,000 scholarships last month. So it's definitely something that our students look forward to, and it really helps out with their expenses. Awards, that list goes on and on. Our students are constantly receiving scholarships and being recognized for other things on campus and at conferences and things like that. Again, I mentioned they're involved with research, and our program happens to be responsible for the maintenance of the LMSA and SNMA organizations. Those are national student organizations. That's the Latino Medical Student Association and the Student National Medical Association, and they tend to cater to underrepresented students, but they're not limited to those students. And our students are responsible for, again, maintaining those chapters at Western U. Our students, again, super involved. We've hosted conferences. Thanks to them, that student leadership does follow our students when they go into professional school. They tend to be leaders in the future as well. They're very team-oriented, and that all has to do with the group work and things like that that we emphasize in our program. I already mentioned the research posters and presentations. Here's some data for you. You might be wondering how our students actually perform in medical school or dental school, optometry school, and whatnot. I did mention that about 2/3 of every cohort is pre-med, and because that's a majority of our data, I wanted to present this to you. So what we can see here is that if a student gets a 3.1 or above in the MSMS program, it correlates with their class rank in our own medical school. So again, this is just data, our own internal data, but you can see where most students fall right in this square. These are the ones we worry about, and so this is the ones, these are the students that that trigger us to maybe sit down and take a look at our curriculum. And so we do have things like intrusive advising, student success plans, things like that. But the data is pretty clear. These are the first couple cohorts of our MSMS students getting through medical school and where they place. So the evidence is there, the proof is there, and our own programs and beyond, we're getting more exposure with other professional programs in the country. They're really leaning on this data. They tend to take us very seriously once we present them with this. All right, so that's the MSMS program. Again, that's 1 year, 46.5 units. There isn't a lot of time for anything else. It's full time. You can't work. You can't really study for a standardized test. So maybe that's not the best fit for you. So we did create the pre-professional concentration in our MSBS program. So this is a 2-year pre-professional option for you. It is not mission-based. We aren't so particular when we're evaluating those applications. You are in very similar curriculum that I just talked about for the MSMS program. The MSBS pre-professional concentration was modeled after the MSMS program, but spread out over 2 years. You do get learning skills courses. However, there's no research in that first year. We make sure that you're adjusting to your science curriculum, and then if you would like, you can move into research your second year. With this layout, it does allow you time to study for a standardized exam, and at this point, we are offering, as part of this program, MCAT prep. As we progress, this is our first cohort that we seeded this fall. For this concentration, the MSBS program has been around as a traditional master's program, but this concentration is new. And so at this point, we are offering MCAT prep. We hope to expand that into DAT, OAT, and maybe GRE prep as well. Your final year is 12 units. That allows you to take on more research. So just a quick summary of both programs. Hopefully you gathered that the basis of these programs would be longitudinal learning. We make sure that you are holding on to the information as you move through the program. As undergrads, you often silo information. You take a course, you memorize the information, you take the exam, and then it's gone. The information's gone, right? Well, that doesn't work in professional school, so we get you prepared for that longitudinal learning. Cumulative exams is what I mentioned earlier. You know, you have to use the information from one course in the next, and that information will follow you. So whatever you took in anatomy will come up again 3 courses later in micro or physiology and whatnot. So again, that is how professional school works, so we get you prepared for that. We're preparing you to be a well-rounded applicant. You know, the evidence of what you do in our program really does speak to medical, dental schools, and all those other folks. So again, I mentioned this is not always an academic enhancer. The average GPA of our outgoing students is a 3.4, but that 3.4 is in those didactic courses and all that, the clinical environments, ethics, and all that. So again, it's well-rounded, and it does make you a comprehensive applicant. Okay. I will leave this up, but every year we have our class come up with a vision statement. I mentioned that our MSMS program puts a big emphasis on our program mission and program vision, and so now every cohort must come up with their own vision. This is the most recent cohort, so now I guess we can open it up to questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Marcus. Just because we are recording this, so I'm going to have all of you come up maybe just a little bit closer to the microphone, and then I want to open it up for questions. And I hope you all have questions because, again, we only do this once a year, so I want to make sure that we make the best use out of our time today. Questions? Yes.
My question is to the consortium. I'm sorry, what was your name?
Mary Earth.
I'm really sorry. Is it okay if you take a year off? Because let's say you have to finish within that year and then apply for the program?
Yeah, so we do have students that have taken a gap year, and we also have like non-traditional students who have worked in other fields, completed their pre-med requirements, then applied to our consortium. So it's totally fine. A year won't.
And then are the requirements, like for financial aid, it's similar to ECR, how it's just scholarships and financial aid is separate?
Yeah, so you can submit your application for FAFSA, but you would qualify for loans rather than grants, which you do as an undergrad for the most part.
So my question, I think, is mainly for Teresa. So you said there's no repeating coursework, and because most of it is upper division requirements. What about for those of us who have possibly like C- in physics? What's the recommendation towards that suggestion?
If somebody contacts me pretty early on when they're planning, I usually ask them to complete that repeat somewhere else before they enroll in our program. Otherwise, I have them repeat the course during at a later point in time after they've demonstrated that they have a 3.5 in our program. So I do work with people. We've had the program 10 years. We have had a few people take a C- in a prereq, probably, if it's that kind of course, maybe at a UC, Cal State, sometimes at a community college if it's just one course. But we do individual advising for that. It just depends on how early the person reaches out to talk about it.
Okay, thank you.